Hello and welcome. Today we're going to be exploring and getting you set up with the very best gear, weapons, traits to really push your infinite mode wave count up to the 3 digits. No, only kidding, that'd be crazy. Most likely possible to get there with the full squad, but the performance right now, is it really going to allow for it? However, if you've been wondering how to actually push your wave count as a player that can dish out some serious damage, then stick around because we're going to go through a fair few things to help get you started. And by all means, if I've got any of this wrong or you've got better suggestions and what to run, please let us know in the comment. It's all about sharing, caring, and we'll get a good handle on this together. Now, a huge shout out to Volcarian. He's done a huge amount of groundwork and a lot of work overall onto understanding the different weapons, what they do, the damage, stats. There's been a fair few people on the Discord that have really contributed to gaining this understanding. So big shout out to Volcarian and all those who have been collecting and looking at this. A lot of this is going to be based off their work with a few little different things that I like to do myself. But generally, from my understanding, this is getting close to pretty much the best kind of setup you can get for the infinite mode and for dishing out some of the highest damage. As a player or as a group, you can become absolute weapons using this build, dishing out millions of damage. So let's get into the crux of it and have a look how this sort of all works out. So first thing, we're going to talk about what is going to be the best recruit or what squad member type is going to be the best. And by far, the most outstanding combination is going to be your Tiger Squad. Now, Tiger Squad by default will always come with the free fire. So for the next 8 seconds, no ammo cost, and you can fire off all of your rounds regardless of the ammo cost. So that's a huge. And then at the same time, you can get an instant cooldown, which accelerates the cooling process of the Xen in use, so the one currently selected, and it also regenerates 5 armor. So that's huge. So for these two alone, and I'll give you an example here. As you can see, I'm lobbing shots off. Then I'm using the free fire. That's going to allow me to fire all the different gun modes, Xens, without costing any extra ammo. And then I can actually quickly use the instant cooldown, which will then let me fire some more shots, all while heavily reducing your ammo cost. So for this and this reason alone is one of the most potent ones because it's going to allow you to dish out some serious damage quickly and reduce your ammo cost. Now, to improve this and make a truly S or SS tier squad member, you would want the foodie. Eating food has a chance to double your buffs, which will tie into being able to help us keep our stamina and keep us in the air for longer, but we'll come to more of how that will work soon. Another good one to have is Performer. This is a passive. This is going to increase the attack and HP of nearby allies and outpost components when used. However, one thing I need you to let me know in the comments is, do we actually need to trigger a emote, the one where you're playing the trumpet, to activate this? My understanding, it's passive, so it's just running in the background. Let me know. Now, the other one you really need to make this truly an S tier recruit, which unfortunately I haven't been able to roll yet. I've still got to roll and get rid of a lot of these and roll some new ones. Try get this perfect squad member. But another one you'd really want is Bottomless Lung, particularly for this build. Absolutely huge. You'll be able to stay in the air for forever, basically, which is going to also make your guns more powerful. You're going to deal more damage. And a very important one is to also have the pilot. So this will allow your mechs, your cataracts will have 50% less damage. Don't worry about to complete the driving course. I think that's just a mistranslation. Let me know in the comments exactly what they mean by that, because I always just assumed as soon as you get access to mechs or you get in a certain part of the campaign or mission, you get this as a passive active that's just running in the background. If you could also get somehow another slider as well, that would be a nice one to have, where you can create fire, which I believe does damage. I haven't actually tested these sliders out yet. Let me know in the comments how they kind of go, if they're any good. There's probably a few others, but those are kind of the traits you're kind of aiming for. If you could get all of those on the one character, watch out, very, very potent. Now, just in case you are new and you're unsure what the Tiger Squad is, keep in mind that you have the Tiger Squad, the Hare Squad, the Owl Squad, and the Mammoth Squad. So they all will have some very unique traits that are only applicable to the different classes. However, for the most part, most of the traits are interchangeable between the different classes. So that's the main difference. A lot of the stats will be the same for the most part between the different classes as well. It's most of the traits that change, is my understanding. So for instance, the Tiger Squad has the unique trait free fire and instant cooldown, whereas the Hare Squad might have force field and power slash and so on. So it just gives you a quick idea. If you need to recruit, you just hit recruit. As long as you've got recruit beacons, which you can purchase and you can collect as you go through the tours, you just hit recruit and it would add a squad member. Now, in order to retire a squad member, we just want to right click and go retire. Just thought I'd throw that in there just in case you are new. And now we're going to have a look at the gear and also what I take. Now, this is going to be completely completely up to you what you want to take in your backpack, but these are just going to be some suggestions. However, before we get into this, I'm just going to give you an overview of the synergy of this overall setup to give you a better understanding of why we're choosing these specific selection of gear and weapon and attachments. So the intention here is to try maximize the most amount of damage perceivably possible using a highly synergized build. Synergized meaning many of the attributes and buffs that you incur from wearing these specific armor or attachments will mutually benefit each other. So let's go with the gear. So the airborne helmet, this is going to give you an aerial combat buff, grants 5% increased attack, stacking up to 10 times, stacks are lost on landing. So this is very potent. So we gain a stack for staying airborne for 1 second. Then every 0.25 seconds airborne after that, we gain 1 stack of aerial combat. So basically within 2 seconds, you've got a 5 stack granting you an increased attack. Now, I don't know the actual numbers of this. If you do, let us know in the comments. So how is that going to help us? Well, first of all, we have the rocket gloves, which are going to help propel us into the air. Now, you could also switch this out for your hook shot gloves, but for this particular build, I'd be going for the rocket gloves. They're by far the best and most synergized in my playstyle or my understanding. So the rocket gloves are going to propel us forward 25 meters in the air. Then we have the maximizer armor, which is going to grant us an extra 20% increased attack if we have 50% more armor. So just basically working as a passive, as long as we have 50% armor or more, we have a passive 20% increase on attack. And the key to this whole build, other than the weapon itself, is the levitation boots. So we are going to be able to stay afloat in the air at the cost of stamina. However, you have a 50% lower stamina cost. So we are going to be using the rocket gloves to propel ourselves high in the air, which also causes high damage to enemies hit. Then we're going to have the boots to keep us afloat with 50% lower stamina cost. So we stay in the air for quite a long time. Then we get the attack bonus from this armor. All the while, we also then get a 5 stack pretty much within the first 2 seconds, which then can stack up to 10 times. But I don't know if it does stack up to 10 times. For my testing, I think it only stacks up to 5. But regardless, then that is going to give us an extra damage on our attack. So all of these are contributing to maximizing our damage output. So a highly synergized build, and I highly recommend running something very similar to this if you want to get the most out of your infinite mode and really be able to start punishing the creeps late game, wave 50 plus. These are going to be some of your best options. Now, before we jump into the different attachments, we're going to have a look at the support gun and what we have attached to that to really maximize the damage potential. But before we do that, keep in mind here where we have the 50% lower stamina cost, how I mentioned that you can get the trait bottomless lung, max stamina plus 40, which then can also be upgraded to stamina regeneration plus 40%. You can see how that will be an extremely potent and useful trait to add to these traits. Then with your piloting would be a very, very nice build. Okay, so let's keep moving. Let's go and have a look at the weapon in more detail. Okay, so we're heading to Yulia and we're going to modify our Xens. We have this beautiful menu now that really makes this all so much more easier and lovely to use. Lovely. What a way to say it, huh? It's a lovely menu. Okay, so I take no credit to this build. This build has definitely been discovered by the guys on Discord, in particular, Valkyrion. So this is very much his brainchild. So again, huge thanks for doing the testing. But this is pretty much going to be the most highest damage weapon that I know of when used in combination with this synergized gear and weapon attachment. So as a whole package, this is going to get you into $3 or 4 million worth of damage per shot, which you're really going to need for those later waves in the infinite mode. Now, when you set these guns up, you pretty much just want 1 or 2 guns. Preferably, I would pretty much be setting up 2 guns, 2 support guns with 4 chains, and then just exactly copying this. And we'll go through that in a detail. But the reason we want the support gun is because reduces the firing interval of all Xens with an interval of 8 seconds by 25%. So anything over 8 seconds in terms of the cooldown for each shot, the firing interval will be reduced by 25%. Now, my understanding, the support gun is the best one to be using. Let me know if that's not the case or if it's a different gun. I'm not 100% sure, but I really like the support gun because you get much easier drop rate of having all 4 Xen modes, which support up to 6 different Xen attachments, whereas only the commander gun and a couple others on very rare chance of drop can you get such easy access to firing 4 Xens with 6 different attachments. But yeah, correct me if there's a better choice for your gun. I imagine it won't be drastically different. So if there is, just check the comments for any of the mistakes I've made throughout this tutorial. So we know what gun we want to use. It's going to help reduce the firing intervals with the cooldowns by 25%. It's a very useful combination that also synergizes with everything we've discussed. Let's move on to the Xens. Now, chain can be bought from the store in exchange for, can't remember exactly off the top of my head, but that's probably the potential earliest you could actually access it if you get lucky at the store. Otherwise, this chain used to actually drop in the first infinite mode, the easier one, but it was quite rare, but it did happen. Outside that, chain drops quite regularly in the infinite mode, the more difficult one. You'll also find it in tours in your city ruins. So if you have some, which can also be dropped from quick looting. So a few different ways to get it, but the main benefit of chain is that hitting a target will continuously cause a random enemy in the vicinity to take damage. So when you fire it, basically creates a little Tesla and fires electricity around and will hit multiple enemies. And this is where this beautifully synergized combination of Mighty Swing 2, where you hit an enemy with full HP, will guarantee to crit with slightly increased critical damage. So basically, first hit is going to deal extra damage. Then we throw in 2 multipliers. Bullet deals more damage and gains increased efficiency the further it travels. So throw that in the mix of being in the air very high from a great distance, because we have the levitation boots, plus we get stacks of damage. So you can see how this is going to really benefit the build we were just looking at. We're going to put 2 multipliers on. Then we're going to add a chain. So this is going to trigger an extra morph Xen when hit. So basically this is going to cause us to be able to hit more targets and for it to cause another chain reaction of the heroic chain itself, more or less. Then on top of that, we've thrown on 2 condensed 2, which will massively increase the damage. Now, some things to go through that are important to understand. So Mighty Swing will always incur a critical hit if hitting the ground and a slight critical bonus increase. So basically we want to be not necessarily hitting the targets, but hitting the ground around the targets to increase the critical damage. The multiplier 2 adds a 25% bonus multiplier on top of an increased hits. Hits increase from 18 to 26 to 35, basically causing more damage again. Chain will double everything at 70% increased cost of the cooldown, but we mitigate that with the traits from a Tiger Squad member, where we can use the instant cooldown and the refreshing of Xens. Then the condensed 2 will add a 50% damage boost, but increase the cost by 30%. The boost only applies to the base damage. So that gives you a rough idea of pretty much the most potent build from my understanding that we have currently in the game. And you can see over here, it's going to cost 173. So basically a complete load of your gun, and the cooldown is 34. But we can basically heavily reduce that with the build that we have. And basically we're just firing one shot, changing to the next, firing another shot, reloading, and so on, as seen in the footage we showed before. So keep in mind that if you go and test this in the shooting range, it's a bit hard to get a good reading of the actual maximum damage output because you can only get so far away from the targets. So in some cases, when you do testing of different builds, you will see a higher damage output, but the end result in actual live scenario is this is going to be the highest damage output because of all the things we've mentioned. So just keep that in mind. The shooting range will lie to you in terms of the potential high level damage you can do in certain builds, particularly when it's based on distance. So just going over again, we want a heroic chain, the Mighty Swing 2, multiplier 2, another multiplier 2, a chain, a condensed 2, and a condensed 2. And to get the most out of this, I would just replicate that 4 times once you have enough. Now, the other thing I really highly suggest is to bring an infinite ammo build, but we'll come back to that soon. So now that we understand that we have a support gun and the different Xens attached, what is going to be the very best barrel? Well, the turbine barrel is probably going to be the best barrel you can get for this build. Comes with a self-charging turbine, which when charged boosts its damage. And what you're looking for, if you can, is you want to be trying to go for more of a crit bonus, which should increase the critical damage from my understanding. And that will go pretty much for all the different attachments. You're not too worried about the weak point bonus or the critical chance. I believe critical bonus is the one you want to focus on. But either or will make some difference, but not hugely noticeable. So the underbarrel, I would go with the triangular grip. But again, this will depend on some of your stats and how you want to run it. But this is just going to reduce the horizontal recoil. This is great because you are quite high up in the sky, firing down. Can be quite a nice attachment to have, it reduces your recoil noticeably depending on what else you have attached, but for this build it's very nice. Now your scope will be whatever you prefer, high powered or shield sight, but again it's going to be dependent on which one you can kind of get the best critical bonus on with the highest CR rating and damage. But I like this one because it's very quick to easy, it's very quick to scope in, fire, scope out, whereas when you do zoom in with the high powered, it does take quite a few extra milliseconds or whatever, but it can allow you to hit more precisely. So I do interchange between a high powered and a smaller sight that's quicker. And again, with the reduced recoil, really plays in well together. Now for the stock, again, this is going to be your preference, but I really like to run the regular stock, which will increase your reload speed and aiming speed. So basically I'm able to look down the sight and reload much quicker. Goes really nice with this build. That's how I've set it up. Let me know what you've set it up and how you think it could be improved. Really interested to hear other people's builds. If you do, make sure you list exactly what you've got so we can all have a look. I might make a follow-up video if there is much better possible builds, synergies, or anything like that for your infinite mode. So that is a good overview of your best sort of setup for your weapon, your attachment, and your gear. Now, when it comes to what you take in your backpack, I would basically suggest to take 2 guns that are exactly like this, 2 or in some cases even 3, so you can cycle through all 3 of them when you get up to the high wave levels, so you can really dish out some serious damage. Particularly if you're going solo, you're gonna need 2 or 3 of these bad boys. Now I have another one set up pretty much exactly the same. Now the one I have currently attached is not the one we were just talking about before, so that would have been a bit confusing. Apologize about that. So this is the one we were looking at. This has the best attachments for your Xens. This is another one I was running where it has a couple of the Xen firing modes that are slightly different, and if you go test this in the shooting range, it will appear to have more damage for the last 2 Xens, but that's not actually the case. I just suggest running the gun we looked at before with all the same Xens, but I would just replicate that 2 or 3 times when you can. Now one thing I really like to do, and this is where my personal touch or suggestion comes in, is to have an infinite ammo weapon, and we'll take a quick look at that very soon. Before we do that, when I jump in, I bring a ton of fuel. Now previously you were able to buy fuel from the store. I don't think you can anymore. I bought a ton of it earlier because you actually needed fuel to even play the infinite mode, which is crazy to think about. Now it doesn't cost anything. I also bring food so I can actually use that trait to get a food buff. The eating food has a chance to double the buffs, so helps my stamina, and then just perhaps some adrenaline in case I need to get out of a sticky situation. And very importantly, I bring electric ammo, does some more damage, great to synergize with the chain. And the good thing is we only need to bring a few containers because we've got an infinite ammo gun, which will just allow us to never ever have to worry about going back to base and getting ammo. We can infinitely get as much ammo as we want. What I would really love to see though is to be able to convert the loose rounds of ammo. I'd love to be able to use the assembler to then say once we get 3,000 of them, to then just easily convert it into an ammo box. That'd be very handy. You'll see what I mean with some of the examples and gameplay that I'll show you. I do have a video of an infinite mode run, which gives you some indication of how this all works together, but this is what I'd be taking. And again, using the fuel to get a good start on material and power. So lastly, we'll just look at this infinite ammo gun. Okay, so unlimited ammo, infinite ammo. Now you can use chain, you can use gale, you can use a variety of different Xens as your main, but I like to use gravity because it pulls them all together and just seems to work quite well. So to build an infinite ammo gun, you want your advanced, so increases the Xen efficiency, elemental rotor, moderately reduces firing interval, moderately increases elemental buildup. Then we just want 3 recovery. 2, hitting a mechanical enemy grants an even higher chance of recovering the bullets. So we just have 3 of those. And then intensify greatly increases radius, but slightly increases the cost. Now this is my attempt at this build. Let me know if you've got a better build for an infinite ammo gun or build. I find this very potent. So much ammo, you can never really go without a gun like this in infinite mode, in my opinion. Even though we are utilizing a build that heavily reduces the ammo cost, I find it really handy to have a gun like this just so I can stack up on electric ammo quickly, easily, deal out more damage throughout the whole game. So there you have it. These are some of the best builds, best gear and combinations. However, if I've got anything wrong or there's more information to have, throw it in the comments. Might do a follow-up video on this just to clarify anything or to see if there are better builds. If you have some interesting builds though for early game and mid game to late game, or anything about your different setup and builds, definitely let us know in the comments. be interesting to hear and learn more about what everyone else is running. Otherwise, thanks very much for watching. I'll leave you with a little bit of gameplay from the infinite mode, just to give you some context of how the infinite ammo gun works, as well as switching between the different weapons. But highly recommend bring multiple weapons, and you should be able to push your infinite mode much further using this build. Thanks very much for watching. If you got anything out of this, consider liking, subscribing, shout at me a coffee, PayPal, all the good stuff. Really goes a long way. Really use your support. Otherwise, just like, subscribe. That would be huge as well. Cheers. Catch you later. Peace. Yeah, for the moment, I don't need to worry too much or do a great deal, really. What we do need to do, though, is get some more ammo.